Sawadee. Hello everyone. Greetings from Bangkok. My name is Lunchakorn Prathumratana, and Sinai already introduced me, and it is my pleasure to give a talk to young leaders of the Central Asia and Afghanistan. Today, my presentation title is the Green or Sustainable Public Procurement, a driving tool for achieving sustainable consumption and production. Next slide, please. Before we start, let's look at this figure saying that the world is not enough. It shows the number of Earth or its resources needed for each country. And you will see that if we live like the US people, we will need the resource of 5 Earths. Unfortunately, our countries are not reaching that high yet. But however, in case of the Central Asia, the average number of Earths you need is about 2.2, is very close to China, and Southeast Asia in average needs 1.2 Earths. So, but in average of the whole world, we already need the resource of almost 2 Earths. That's one of the reasons why we do need to be aware of our consumption and production and try to make it sustainable. Next slide, please. Today I have divided my presentation into 3 parts. First, I will explain about what is green or sustainable procurement. And hereafter, sometimes I will call it in short term like G or SPP. Then I want to tell you why SPP or GPP is important for achieving sustainable consumption and production. And finally, the most important part, I have been here is to show you the work of Switch Asia program regarding G and SPP. Next slide, please. And during my presentation, if you have any comments, doesn't have to be just question, you can just post it on the chat. I want to hear from you as well, how is the situation of the green products or green procurement in your country. Regarding the SPP or GPP, it's no denying that we are born to buy. So did you know that every single purchase has hidden impact throughout entire supply chain? As the purchasing organization, it is important to demand the transparency to the upstream and downstream impacts of goods and services that you buy, and it's important to incorporate what we call sustainability criteria into purchasing decisions at the scale that can shift the market. So in order to do so, you need to prioritize to have a quick impact and create the trust. Next slide, please. So when you buy something, the impact you see is only the tip of the iceberg, but actually the hidden impact to the supply chain and to the environment is very huge, like the unseen part under the iceberg. Next slide, please. I believe that everyone here knew Sustainable Development Goals, which have been created since 2015. I just want to emphasize that the sustainable public procurement has been recognized internationally, that it is important as it has been specified in the target number 12.7 under the SDG number 12, Sustainable Consumption and Production, to promote public procurements that are sustainable in accordance with the national policy and priorities. Next slide, please. So now let's move on to the official definitions. You might hear before both terms, green public procurement and sustainable public procurement. The term green public procurement has been used since the 90s and still being used in many countries. With regards to the definition given by the EU green public procurement, it is a process whereby public authorities seek to procure goods, services, and works with the reduced environmental impact throughout their life cycle when compared to goods, service, and work with the same primary function. that would be otherwise be procured. However, the sustainable public procurement added the elements of the society and the economy into the consideration while minimizing the environmental damage. Next slide, please. And here are some examples of the products and services categories that are usually found in the green or sustainable public procurement in many countries. And here I took it mostly from the EU GPP. They can be products such as the furniture, cleaning products, textile, lighting and traffic signals, for services and contract of work, which is a bit more complex, but in terms of impact, it is usually high because they have a lot of elements inside. For example, the construction, the data center, service rooms, food gathering services, printing service, etc. And next slide, please. So, as I mentioned earlier, that GeoSPP is important, that it is one of the SDGs target. But why exactly it is important to achieve SCP? Next slide, I'll show you. It is the power of spending of the government or the public sector. It is important because the public authorities procurement accounts for a range of 15 to 30% of the GDP. It was about 14% of the GDP in Europe, 29% of the total governmental expenditure in the OECD countries, and up to 30% of GDP in developing countries. So if the public authorities shift their procurement to be sustainable, it could create a huge impact towards the SCP. Next slide, please. I want to show you the green or sustainable public procurement benefits a country that it offers opportunity to move towards green market, encourages a more resource efficient, environmental sound and competitive technologies, saving the hidden costs such as the pollution treatment, even healthcare service. Importantly, it enables the transition to a green economy. Next slide, please. And now we want to buy green, but how you know if a product or service that we want to buy is green or sustainable? The easiest way to recognize is looking for eco-label certified products or service. Next slide, please. And next slide. And eco-label is a label that identifies overall environmental performance of a product or service. It is a marketing tool to communicate with environmental friendliness or sustainability with the consumer. Next slide, please. The International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, categorized the eco-labels into 3 types. Type 1, which its operation is according to the ISO 14024. It is voluntary, multiple criteria, awarded by third party, and using life cycle consideration principle in development of the criteria. Germany is the first country to develop the type 1 eco-label. We call the Blue Angel. I'm not sure whether some of you might already saw these labels in your countries, but here are some examples. There are more than 33 programs of the 50 countries now have been using these type 1 eco-labels. And next slide is the type 2 eco-label. It is based on ISO 14021, and we usually call it as the self-declare by the manufacturers or retailers. The one which we might be familiar is the Mobius loop, like the recycle mark, showing the product is recyclable or the percentage of the recycled content of the packaging. Next slide, please. And now here is the type 3 eco-label. It is also, next slide, please. The The type 3 eco-label is voluntary. It is verified and certified by third party. It applies the life cycle assessment principle. So the environmental impacts of whole life cycle are quantified and reported with the label. And for example, you see the picture on the right-hand side. It's the environmental product declaration of a UL certified plywood, which report the figures of environmental impacts based on the life cycle assessment topics, such as the global warming, ozone depletion, acidification, depletion of the resource, etc. Next slide, please. However, there are more than 400 eco-labels in this world. So here are some suggestions for you to be aware of the greenwashing or false claims that manufacturers or sometimes the companies want to make consumers believe that their products or services are environmentally friendly or sustainable by just putting those labels or claims on them. So these are some examples of them. Try to avoid those products with logos of like natural, eco-friendly, 100% natural without any further explanation. Green, the color of the packaging, some company turn it to become green, like you see here, Coca-Cola. It doesn't always mean that the product is environmentally friendly. You have to be carefully check the information. Next slide, please. Well, I hope everyone had some idea what is the green or sustainable public procurement and why it is important. Now let's move on to the works that Swiss Asia has been supporting through the technical assistance and the grant projects. Next slide, please. First, let me begin with an example of a grant project in Central Asia on a model for sustainable tourism in Central Asia, or in short is the MOST. The project has been implemented in Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan for a period of 2020 to 2022. And one of their objectives is to promote the sustainable tourism in the 3 countries to the implementation of the ISO standards related to green procurement and eco-labeling. They will also elaborate guidelines on sustainable consumption, including the usage of water, energy, and recyclable waste, and promote and sharing the EU best practices such as the legislative framework regulation while applying the ICT, needed ICT and marketing. Next slide, please. And now let's move on to the country support of Swiss Asia SCP facility on the technical assistance with regards to the G or SPP. The first is the technical assistance project in India on sustainable public procurement for Indian Railways, which SCP facility coordinated closely with the Ministry of Railways and the EU delegation India. Cosima Star is our key expert who led this project. It was implemented during April last year until May this year. The objective of the project were to advocate effective consultation and provide technical support for decision and policymaker, key stakeholder on SCP and SPP, strengthen capacity and increase awareness on SCP or SPP. Translate the SCP related policy into an action plan of the SPP to support the delivery and promote and increase the uptake of SPP by the zonal railways and other stakeholders and disseminate SPP best practices. Next slide, please. And the key outputs of this technical assistance include a policy analysis paper, capacity buildings, SPP action plan for Indian Railways that describes the priority area regarding the integration of SPP into the Indian Railways system and implementing guide for the action plan for the short term and long term. And next slide. Now let's move on to the technical assistance of Swiss Asia SCP facility in Southeast Asia, which our expert Lauren Gatlabayan is in charge. First country to mention is Indonesia. The project title is Enhancing SCP through Implementation of Green or Sustainable Public Procurement and the preparation of a long-term action plan for GOSPP in Indonesia. It was completely implemented last year, and the government partner of this project was the Center for Environmental and Forestry Standard under the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. And we have a joint partnership with also GIZ Advanced SCP project and government partners working to deliver a market readiness analysis report on the wooden furniture and government partners and wooden furniture and paper industry, which was led by SCP facility. And for GIZ Advanced SCP, they support the development of the technical regulations or for paper and furniture sectors, and developed based on the market readiness report that we produced, and initiated the process for long-term action plan for GOSPP in the paper and wooden furniture and other priority sectors in Indonesia. The market readiness analysis report is available on Swiss Asia website for download, and here I provide a link. You can click and see. And next, let's go to Mongolia. Next slide, please. For Mongolia, the technical assistance of the SCP facility has been implemented since August 2019 and is ongoing with the project title Support SCP Governance and Preparation of an SCP Policy Plan. Greening the supply chain in selected sectors through pilot projects and training to strengthen perception of SCP patterns and the potential benefits of SME or MSME. The work is in close cooperation with the Ministry of Environment and Tourism. The key deliverables here with regards to sustainable public procurement are the training workshops on SCP and SPP, review of existing SPP action plan and prepare a revised and updated version, and preparation of the set of SPP criteria for 3 selected product category in consultation with the concerned governmental agency and stakeholders. Now let's move on to Thailand. Next slide. In Thailand, the SCP facility has been working with 3 governmental agencies under the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, including the Pollution Control Department, Office of Natural Resources and Environmental Policy and Planning, and Department of the Environmental Quality Promotion on the project titled Mainstream Green Integration of Thailand, Transformation from Policy to Implementation, which has been implemented since June last year and will be finished in this month. Next slide. The project aims to enhance the procurement of the green products and services in Thailand and cluster the green products and services for effective management, because we already have so many eco-labels in our country in Thailand now, and develop a green integration policy provide knowledge and raise awareness on green products and services. Key outputs from this project, including the green integration policy and action plan to support the green products and services, and the framework for development of a national green directory platform. And also, in order to get this done, the project also gone through a pilot testing, which was conducted in 3 organizations representing central government, local government, and the private sector. And also the capacity buildings and knowledge sharing seminars were also conducted to strengthen the SCP network in Thailand and in ASEAN countries. Next slide, please. And last week, the project organized a closing event with a virtual seminar on new generations, the driving force for achieving sustainable lifestyle in Thailand. The event was conducted with the aim to promote the success story of the project. There were about 150 participants from various stakeholders, including central and local governments, state enterprise, eco-labeling programs, private sectors, NGO, university students, and general consumers. The interesting part of this event was also that we invited new generations to share the perceptions and the experiences on the sustainable lifestyle. The panelists that we invited they were young CEO from eco-innovation design company, a social activism, and a high school student who is a Thai youth representative to attend the mock COP26. And on the right-hand side, the picture, this girl, she's only 18, shows some to see that some example of the Thai generation have shifting towards sustainable lifestyle. This high school girl has shared that she has changed her lifestyle because a concern on the environmental problem that she and her friends has been facing, such as the climate change and the PM 2.5, which may destroy the future of her generation to live in a good environment. And next slide. And the other panelist, he is an actor and the CEO of the eco-innovation design company and social enterprise. He and his wife in this picture, who is an actress also, devoted themselves to promote sustainable lifestyle and develop a project by coordinating with 153 universities in Thailand to encourage the university students to shift their behavior into a sustainable lifestyle. Next slide, what they do, they created a kind of application called the EcoLife, and by reporting in this application about the activities that benefit the environment with taking picture, for example, planting trees or refuse using plastic, separation of plastic waste, or participating in environmental seminar and so on. Then they will receive some points that can be redeemed for some privilege, such as like eco products and discounts in some coffee shops and restaurants. This project has been conducted since 2019 and quite successful, with over 60,000 participants, and there were more than 1.8 million actions reported on this application. So I would like to make a conclusion with the next slide, please. To conclude my presentation, that the procurement is the premise and foundation of the consumption, and the green or sustainable procurement will be an opportunity for leaders who want to shift their country spending to be more sustainable and inspire the society to move towards a green economy. And the element of these eco-labels are means of compliance and reference source of green or sustainable criteria. And that is all of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.